morning we've come down to have a look at a place called Barrett Street Weir. It's in Margaret River. We were expecting probably a little better car parking facilities than just a turnaround at the end of the road, but looks like this is it. And it's down a trail at the end of the turnaround here, so go down, see what we can find. Well, Barrett Street is just up there, that's where the turnaround is, but if you walk down the path you find there's a gravel road. That must come in from somewhere, so we're going to go and see if we can find that. There's easy access to the water from both sides of the weir, so great little spot to come and have a dip when it's a little bit warmer. How the water levels go once the flow of the river dries up, I'm not sure. I suppose in summer this is going to drop a bit, but it's deep enough, I'd say, for there to be water here all year long. A lot of bird life, a few wildflowers, but not a whole lot. Good spot to bring little inflatables and maybe even a kayak and paddle around, go upstream a bit. There's some walk trails here, and one of them will lead you back to Rotary Park on the highway, so if you want a nice shady walk you can either start at the Rotary Park end or come up to Barrett Street Weir. Very pleasant walk through the trees. If you continue on from the weir and don't head back towards Rotary Park, there's another trail here that leads you up to 10 Mile Brook, and there's a dam up there to have a look at. It's a walking and cycling trail, and of course back down at Rotary Park there is a cycle hire, so you don't have to bring your own bike. And yes, it's worth coming down to have a look. Looks like a really good little swimming hole here. Apparently pretty popular with the locals as well. It's just a little dirt track nestled in between houses you have to look for. If you're using mapping software, you'll find it pretty easily. I've got to make a note here about long vehicle parking. Parking for big vehicles like motorhomes and caravans is usually not easy to find and can be very scarce. If smaller vehicles take up parking that's clearly marked for buses and caravans, it makes life a lot more difficult. On this morning, there were 2 vehicles using the long vehicle parking bay at Rotary Park. They should have been using the standard parking, which was plentiful. We would like to ask people to please think about where you park and don't take up spaces meant for long vehicles. It turned out that the brewery was one of the attractions that opens at 11 AM. I guess not all that surprising considering what they sell. As that was the case, all we could do really was have a look around and do a bit of filming, but we couldn't sample any of the beer.
15 years
Oh, yeah.
under the Great Southern Distilling Company name. And that's the whole whiskey range that you see in the middle of the bar here. So they make all the whiskey down in Albany. And then we opened up this location 4 years ago in Margaret River, where we started distilling all of the white spirits, which is all of the gin and vodka. So they are the same on either end of the bar there, they just mirror to each other.
Oh yeah, okay.
So in terms of the whiskey, we have a single malt, which are the round bottles here, the lime burners. And we've got an American style as well, which is a sour mash, so they're the tiger snakes, the square bottles. Everything on the bar is open, all the bottles are cracked, have a smell, have a little read. We've got tasting notes in front of all of the products, as well as all the tasting prices and bottle prices. So yeah, you can do a tasting paddle if you want to try a bunch. You can pick and choose what you'd like to taste.
Okay.
You don't even need to taste. You can get a beer or wine or coffee, whatever you like. We do all that too. So
all right.
Have a little bit of a look around. Have a gaze, let me know if you need a hand or you got any questions or you'd like to taste anything.
We're back at the Colonial Brewery again. We dropped in here before. We came in a bit too early in the day when we were heading out. So we've come back in the afternoon on our way back to camp and going to do a bit of taste testing with the beer. At this point in the video, I've had to cut out a whole section of original audio because of music playing in the background. Of course, YouTube stuck a copyright claim on it, despite the fact that it's only segmented background music. But as a result of that, I wouldn't have made a cent out of this video. This kind of copyright claiming of incidental, unintended background music is complete and utter nonsense, but there's nothing I can do about it, so the whole section had to be removed and I've had to overdub. Instead of the original, I'll now give you a rundown of what the beers were like in the voiceover. The first beer was a draft. Nice enough, but nothing special. The second was called Small Ale, and it turned out to be my favourite. It was a bit of an unusual flavour, but very pleasant to drink. Number 3 was a Pale Ale. A little bitter, but overall quite a decent drink. Number 4 was IPA Australia. Less bitter than the Pale Ale, but nothing really special, I guess. The most unusual of the lot, and I gotta say not in a good way, was the last one on the tasting paddle. This was called Southwest Sour, and it was sour. It was just as though somebody had placed lemon juice in the beer. Not something I really want to try ever again. On the whole, the beers were of a similar style, which to me was disappointing. I make my own homebrew, and I experiment with different flavours, so it would have been really nice to have a range of different styles to try. I guess for the price, on a Tuesday of $9, it was good to just give them a go, and although the beers were pretty nice, they're not anything I could really rave about, I guess.